Hey guys, so the reason why I'm making this video is because I just want to explain why I think that Star Wars The Force Awakens could have been a great movie. I know that the consensus sort of thing is that this is kind of just a good movie, but I wanted to explain more of why it could be a great movie. So let's get started. The story can still start out the same way with Poe going to Lord Santeca's hut and getting the piece of the map and then giving it to BB-8. We can continue with Kylo Ren and the First Order coming down to Jakku and burning up the village. I think it would have been kind of beneficial if they just had one scene with Finn and another stormtrooper just talking about, oh, this mission's going to be really intense and don't worry kid, I got your back, just to develop the reason why Finn kind of defected from the First Order, rather than have us automatically care about Finn not even knowing who he is. So then we can continue with Poe being captured by the First Order and taken back to the Finalizer ship. And also we can continue with BB-8 escaping from the attack. After that we can have Rey's introduction. I think the main problem that people have with Rey's character is that people think that she's a Mary Sue type. She kind of figures out everything really quickly and that she doesn't really have any struggles. I kind of want to prove that point wrong. I think the movie would have benefited more if we saw her in more ships and kind of tinkering around with like the control panels just to see that she's familiar with flying around ships. Because in the later scene, when Finn says, oh, we need a pilot, and she says, we got one, it's kind of like, do we really establish that she was a pilot? Another element I would change is the fact that instead of Rey wanting to stay on Jakku and wait for her family, the fact that she wants to get off Jakku and explore it and try to find her family. That would kind of parallel New Hope with Luke wanting to get off Tatooine as much as possible. So we move on to the scene where Rey rescues BB-8 from the junk dealer and then they become friends. And then we move on to the scene back on the First Order destroyer where Captain Phasma confronts Finn. Except this time I think it would be more intense if it was actually Kylo Ren going to Finn personally and calling him out on not destroying all the people in the village. It would kind of make Finn feel more intimidated and kind of solidify why he would want to defect from the First Order. Also the character of Captain Phasma, I think she could have been taken out of the movie completely and just saved for maybe like episode 8 or episode 9. Or if she was going to be more in this movie, she could have just been a small role, maybe just like a little cameo or a shot of her so the audience looks at her and says, oh wow, that actually looks kind of interesting. Another thing is that I think that the character of General Hux could have been portrayed just a little bit better. He could have been maybe a little bit older, but if they wanted to stick with a younger actor, they could have just made him more authoritative, maybe just a little bit more strict rather than just kind of like a whiny teenager kind of guy. I also thought that there should be more of a main villain in the story. Maybe have Kylo Ren be more of the strict villain and have Hux kind of be more of like the henchman type, or have more of a role reversal rather than have him kind of like be equal and kind of be like butting heads trying to like for positions in power. So we move on to the scene where Finn rescues Poe and they escape in the TIE Fighter. And again, as I pointed out earlier, I think it would have been affected if we actually saw a scene of Poe waking up and then seeing Finn on the ground and trying to wake him up and saying that he might potentially be dead, and then calling in the Resistance to pick him up and then fly him out, just so we can explain like what happened to Poe. And then when Finn wakes up, it's more intense because it's just like, oh no, the Resistance went off without him and Finn's still here all stranded, what's he gonna do? So then we continue on with Finn waking up and then going to the village and trying to get water and then seeing Rey fight all the scavengers. Then we continue on with the stormtroopers coming down and finding Finn and Rey and BB-8 trying to escape from them. We then come to the scene where they find the Millennium Falcon and fly it off. And this time it won't seem as jarring at the fact that Rey can actually fly the Millennium Falcon because we set up before that she can actually work out these different parts. So eventually the Millennium Falcon breaks down and Rey has to fix it. Another thing I would change is that Finn would be completely honest with Rey and tell her that he was actually a defective stormtrooper and that he just wants to flee from the First Order. This would kind of parallel New Hope a little bit more with the fact that Han doesn't want to be on the adventure the entire time, and at the very end he comes back and saves the day. And then when Han Solo comes in, it kind of adds this whole new dimension between him and Finn's relationship, the fact that Finn kind of represents his older self. So we come to the scene where Han and Chewbacca meet Finn and Rey. Then we come to the scene where the Millennium Falcon is boarded by the smugglers. I think the obvious thing that I would change is take out the Raptors. That was really the only thing that when I saw the movie kind of took me out. It felt more of like a Galaxy Quest kind of scene. I think they should have treated that scene more like a Western, have it kind of like a slow confrontation. Han's in the middle, and then he has these two people on the side, and then he's like a quick draw and blast them really quick. I think that would be more interesting, more fun. I know they're trying to establish the fact that Han's still continuing as a smuggler, but I think it would be more interesting if they had him smuggle like spices or credits or something like that. So we can move on to the scene where the Millennium Falcon escapes from the smugglers and they head to Mos Esca's castle. The one big major change I would make to the story is just take out Starkiller Base altogether. I think the whole idea that's just a rehash of the Death Star is kind of not really that beneficial. I know they try to make it more intense to the fact that it can destroy entire star systems and the fact that it's actually harder to blow up. But if we were to have a third Death Star type weapon, I think it would be more beneficial if they said that for episode 9 and have it kind of be set up in this first one. I think the main reason why they used it is because they wanted a reason to destroy the Galactic Senate. I know the Hostian system is supposed to be like this really important place for the government, but I think it would have been actually more intense if they actually sent a bunch of Star Destroyers down to the planet and they were like shooting up everyone and everyone was like, oh no, help us! I think that would have been just a little bit more intense and more personal. Also, another big change I would make is take Snoke out completely. I think they should have set him up more like the Emperor in the original trilogy, have him kind of be mentioned in this first one, and the second one show like a hologram of him, and the third one actually reveal him. That way, for at least this film, Hux could have been the main villain. Another change I would make is make Maz Kanata's castle more of like a mysterious and darker place rather than kind of like an upbeat and colorful place. So you feel the tension of like, who is Maz Kanata and like, what is she? What's she all about? Also, I think it would have been kind of more interesting if Maz Kanata was more of a shady character rather than kind of like a goofy Yoda type. I also really enjoyed the idea of Finn wanting to leave the heroes and kind of go his own way. But I think that scene would have been beneficial if that was more at the end. I think having it in the middle of the movie is just a little bit too soon because we haven't really gotten to know Finn that much. I think having it towards the end would be more beneficial because then there's more tension at the fact that we need him the most when the stakes are this high. So we move on to the scene where Rey goes down to the caverns of the castle and finds Luke's lightsaber in the box. And then we get to the scene where she touches it and she has that flashback of all the events that happened with the lightsaber. I thought all that was brilliant, but I think the one thing I would change is that Maz would explain more to Rey her relationship with the Force. I know the Rise are trying to set up storylines for 8 and 9, but I think it would just be a little beneficial if she just explained where she got the lightsaber from. So then we continue on with the scene of the alien calling the First Order and eventually them coming and attacking the castle. Kind of controversial change I would make is instead of having the lightsaber duel between Finn and Kylo Ren take place at the end of the movie, bring it up to the middle of the movie. It would kind of make the fact that Finn defected from the First Order a little bit more personal. We'll show that Finn's clearly outmatched by Kylo Ren right when Kylo Ren's about to give the finishing blow. Poe and the Resistance pilots fly in and save the day. So Kylo's all freaked out and runs into the forest, and then that's when he meets Rey. We'll still have all the action beats of Rey shooting at Kylo Ren and Ren deflecting him with his lightsaber and eventually knocking her out and taking her onto the ship. We'll still see Finn seeing Rey being kidnapped by Kylo Ren, but instead of him being obsessed about rescuing her, he's still kind of unsure of himself. So we cut to the scene where Rey's in her restraints, and then Kylo Ren comes in and tries to use the Force to get the information from her. Except this time he keeps the helmet on to keep the mystery alive. We'll still have a scene of Rey kind of resisting his mind control and him kind of leaving in frustration of the fact that he can't get the information. We'll still have the fact that the Force kind of awakens in her mind and she realizes that she can actually use it. And instead of having a scene with her using the Jedi mind trick, we'll just have her kind of close her eyes and try to concentrate on opening the restraints by herself. Again, to show that she's powerful but not too powerful in the Force and that she is learning things too quickly. So then she escapes and tries to find her way out. So we cut to the heroes arriving on the Resistance base. We still have the scene between Finn and Poe reuniting, but instead of Finn and Poe reuniting being super happy to see each other, Finn's still feeling kind of shaky about whether he fits in all this. And then Finn says to Poe, I don't know if I want to be in all this, I kind of want to find my own path. And then Poe says, alright, well, take care of yourself. There's a couple pilots that'll take you where you want to go. But before he leaves, Finn turns around and says, please find Rey. She's a good person. And then Poe says, I will. Then he immediately goes inside the base to inform everyone. We'll also keep the scene of Han and Leia reuniting and talking about Kylo Ren being their son, and attempting to bring him back from the dark side. So then we move on to the scene where BB-8 meets up with R2-D2 and C-3PO. Except this time, instead of R2-D2 being in low power mode, he's actually alive and well. Again, paralleling New Hope that the entire plot should be BB-8 return to Resistance and find the missing piece to find Luke. But instead of immediately trying to find Luke, the real conflict is trying to find Rey and stopping Kylo Ren. So Poe enters the base and tells Resistance leaders that Rey's been kidnapped. After knowing Rey's true importance in all the events, they immediately start making plans to rescue her. And meanwhile, there's also a secret mission of Han trying to bring Kylo Ren back to the light side. So Han, Chewie, and this time Poe volunteer to board his ship and go onto the Star Destroyer to rescue Rey. But they become captured by the Star Destroyer and taken prisoner by the Stormtroopers. Then we kind of have a New Hope Death Star rescue type sequence. We'll have Han and Poe kind of beat up the Stormtroopers and then take on their gear and then take their restraints and put them on Chewie and pretend that he's a prisoner. They'll go to the cell block and pretend that they have a prisoner transfer and try to find Rey's cell. They go inside the cell and see that Rey's missing. They're like, oh no, where is she? And they turn around and try to find her, and then suddenly she's right there and says, aren't you guys a little short for Stormtroopers? Just have another reference to A New Hope. So once they're all reunited, they head back to the Falcon. But right before they're about to board, Kylo Ren shows up. Han Solo walks up to him and calls him Ben and tries to negotiate with him coming back to the light side. Kylo Ren then talks about how he's being torn apart and that there's only one thing that Han Solo can do to help him. Han Solo says yes, and then Kylo Ren kills him. Chewbacca can have his moment of freaking out and shooting everyone, and then eventually shooting Kylo Ren. Rey and Poe plead with Chewie to come back on the ship, and eventually he does, and they fly off. Kylo Ren struggles to get up, and the Stormtroopers surround him, asking what they should do next. Then Kylo Ren orders a bunch of TIE Fighters to go after them. Rey gets into the cockpit and flies the Millennium Falcon out from the Star Destroyer, and soon a bunch of TIE Fighters come in and try to destroy them. And then when all hope seems lost, Finn and the Resistance come out and save the day. Rey, Poe, and Chewbacca are happy that Finn came back and they go into hyperspace back to the Resistance base. So the heroes are right back on the base, and this time there's actually a funeral for Han Solo. So then the heroes meet up with R2-D2 and C-3PO. They're all able to see the map in its entirety of Luke's location. Then Leia tells Rey to board the Millennium Falcon and find him. At this point she's aware that Rey's force sensitive and that she needs to meet up with Luke in order to train with him. And as I said earlier, we won't see Luke in this at all. So then we end the film with Rey, Chewbacca, and R2-D2 boarding the Millennium Falcon and flying into hyperspace. then Iris out, and end credits. And that's where we end Force Awakens. So as I said earlier, The Force Awakens works, but there's still a couple things that could have been changed just to make it a little bit better and just a little bit more streamlined. Also, this isn't the end-all be-all of what could have been changed in The Force Awakens, so please let me know what you would have changed in The Force Awakens in the comment section below. And if you like this video, be sure to like it and subscribe, and be sure to watch some more of my videos. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.